All right, y'all, as promised, even though I'm a little injured, we're gonna see how many times I could rep 135, right? Again, 405 bench here. Let's see how many I can get. 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sweet. Hey y'all, Zach here. In today's video, we're gonna be discussing why my overhead press is trash in comparison to my bench press and how I plan on fixing that and how you can fix it if your overhead press is lacking as well. Okay, before we start today's video, I would like to quickly shout out my workout program, right? Program I designed myself to help me get to a 405 bench, a 635 deadlift, and a soon-to-be 500-pound squat with just, a month and a half of training, right? But quick disclaimer, right? If you just have slightly above average genetics, I would 100%, stay away from this workout program if you don't want to be called a fake natural, right? Even if you're not using performance enhancing drugs, this workout program will probably make you labeled a fake natty, right? I'll have the evidence right here and right here and right here. But I'll just use those because this could be a whole clip by itself. But again, it's only $5, less than a Big Mac, but more fulfilling. All right, back into the video, right? Getting straight into it. The number one reason is I was just lacking in the shoulders and arms department, right? Before I implemented a dedicated shoulder and arm day, I was just going based off the chest / triceps / back and bi days, right? I was, naive enough to think that would be enough for me to fill out my arms because obviously, I'm doing back movements that also target my biceps and I'm doing chest movements that also target my triceps, right? While also doing some tricep exercises and bicep exercises, right? I thought that would be good enough. And for most people it is, right? But I'm not most people. I'm 6'4" and I have longer limbs, right? So that just means I have a lot more surface area to cover when it comes to muscle growth. So that's one of the biggest disadvantages for me. And you probably noticed too that the best bodybuilders usually are under like 5'11", like they're usually 5'9" and under, right? So that's one of the biggest disadvantages for me. And obviously to have a big overhead press, you're gonna want some big muscles to go with it, some big arms to go with it, right? Especially like some 3D delts, some like pretty decent biceps and triceps, which are another big stabilizing muscle for your overhead press. And I was lacking in those areas. I mean, for a while, I wasn't even really doing side delt exercises. It was just about 4 to 5 months ago when I started implementing my very own like shoulder and arm day. And I still think I'm lacking in it, right? I mean, here is a picture of me doing my chest and triceps and back and biceps, like the picture of my arms back then. And then here's an updated picture of me now after implementing my arm day, right? Obviously noticeable improvements, but it's still one of the biggest, I guess, limiting factors on my body. It's one of my biggest, like noticeable disadvantages pretty much, right? I could always use some bigger arms. And I've actually been thinking about for a while, probably working out 6 times a week, and that like 6th day is me just having a second dedicated arm day. Because again, I still feel like I am lacking. That could be body dysmorphia, but I've noticed like my arms aren't as big, right? And this obviously will help and translate very well over to my overhead press. Because again, like I said, biceps and triceps are a huge stabilizing muscle for your overhead press, and your delts are one of the biggest factors when it comes to overhead pressing, right? So number one is just implementing, or the lack of implementing, a good shoulder and arm day, right? Or a dedicated shoulder and arm day. And number two is pretty much me focusing or hyper focusing on bench press instead of the overhead press, right? You would assume, oh, they're both pressing movements, so they should have enough like pretty good strong carryover. And that wasn't the case for me, right? I can bench 405, and here's a clip of me doing so. Fucking easy, bro. Right? But I can only overhead press 135 for about 9 to 10 reps, probably 12 reps on a good day, right? If you didn't see my community post, I was injured, and I do want to shout out and thank all my pretty much subscribers for, wishing me the best and hoping I was okay. That really means a lot. I'm blessed to have you guys, and that's so awesome. Thank you. I also want to shout out to the people who are supporting me with the workout program. I don't want to do a quick little ad like I usually do. I already did that, right? We're not going to do that again, but I just want to shout you guys out and just tell you I really appreciate you. And I want to go ahead and tell you I promise it will never be more than $5. That's on my life. But getting back into the video, right? I feel like if I wasn't injured, because I still feel a slight, not even a slight, like a pretty decent impingement on my upper back, I felt like I would be able to do a little bit more. Because even when I brace and I breathe in, I could still feel it. Like it's pretty much like knocking on, like, hey, I'm here right now. And if you keep doing this, I'm probably gonna hurt a little bit more. So that does kind of suck, right? But getting into it, the number 2 reason why my overhead press is not as good as it should be is because I was hyper focusing on bench press, right? It's not really like the best carryover because, again, they're pressing movements, but they're targeting pretty much different muscle groups, right? And funny enough, a lot of people also told me, like, yeah, dude, my ratio isn't the best either. I was like, makes sense, right? A lot of people don't really overhead press that much. Bench press is more of a more like stapled exercise. I mean, the most common question you get in the gym is like, how much you bench, bro? Right? So I was more hyper focused on bench press. And again, it really targets your pecs, your triceps, and I mean, it gets your front delts, which is obviously that's heavily engaged in overhead press, but you're really pressing in different like positions, right? You're on the bench and you're laying down while you're pressing, whereas overhead press requires so much more stability, so much more stabilizing muscles. Because again, if you're doing it strict, you aren't using anything else. There is no leg drive. You have leg drive in the bench press, right? So again, that was a huge factor. And why it didn't really necessarily carry over as well, right? So again, if you overhead press 135, like for like multiple reps plus, you're strong as hell. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out there. And another thing is, I just didn't overhead press. And number 3 is just me not overhead pressing. Overhead pressing is usually like, you really don't see people overhead pressing in the gym at all. It was funny too. I remember I was overhead pressing when I started my journey, and like, okay, I got to really do better. About 2-3 weeks ago, I look over and I see some dudes like at the same bar I was, and they're just like, huh. They started overhead pressing, right? So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm kind of influencing people to do that. It was funny because they also came up to me and they were like, hey, we saw your videos and they were pretty cool, super cool. I'm going off a tangent again, but dude, yeah, you really just see strongmen doing it, right? And there's not a lot of strongmen that go to the commercial or warehouse gyms even. They usually have strongman gyms, or they usually work out in their gym or their garage gym because a lot of people aren't strong enough to like hang out with them, you know what I'm saying? I mean, my gym owner has all the strongman stuff outside of the gym, so you don't really see strongman shit going on, right? Or strongman type of exercises. So again, overhead press was just kind of new to me. Something I wasn't really familiar with, right? Never really seen people do it. So it's another reason why my overhead press sucks. It's just me not being familiar with it, not me really getting into it. But until now. But getting into how I plan on fixing my overhead press. First things first, obviously, is by overhead pressing more. And that's exactly what I'm doing. The initial plan was to do it first, like once a week on my arm days, which is perfect, right? Because you're hitting most of your arms. You're stabilizing muscles. Your triceps need to be big when you're overhead pressing. Obviously, you're getting your front and your side delts, and you're getting some upper back, and some upper chest a little bit, right? So you're pretty much getting the whole deal when it comes to upper body. And so I started doing that, and I started also planning on doing, not even planning, I started doing it on my other chest day, right? Because I do 2 chest days or 2 bench days, right? And it was on the day where I'm like, okay, overhead press can be taxing, especially if I do it beforehand and I want my bench performance to still be decent. So I decided to do it on a day where I'm benching a lighter weight for volume, right? Because again, overhead press and benching, they do overlap in some ways when it comes to hindering your performance on both lifts. Because if I'm overhead pressing for reps and then bench pressing, my front delts are just going to be just burnt out, right? But since I could do 315 for like 4 or 5, I'm like, I'll just do that and I'll have overhead press beforehand, right? So I also saw, like, whenever I do implement an exercise twice a week, I just get better at it, obviously a lot faster. I mean, that's just common sense. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it, right? So number one is just overhead pressing more. And number two is, it's funny because the reasons why I'm bad at it is also going to be the reasons why I'm good at it, right? And number two is me implementing a shoulder and arm day, right? If I want to have bigger overhead press, I'm going to need some bigger muscles, right? Again, going crazy on my triceps and my biceps and my delts, right? I was ignoring my shoulders for too long, especially my side delts. They weren't getting enough engagement in the exercises I was doing, and they were lacking for quite a bit. Still kind of are lacking, in my opinion. So again, starting doing a lot more side delts, some lateral raises, and some isolation movements, exercises to help build more of that 3D look, that 3D shoulders, to get my overhead press to where I want it and where it needs to be, you know? And pretty much that's all what I plan on doing. Again, just number three, I guess, is just being consistent, right? I mean, if you want to see progress, if you want to see growth, you got to keep doing it. That's the coolest thing about about the gym, right? Like, the more time you put into the gym, the more time and, worth you're going to see, you're going to get. And that's what I love about it. Right. So, but yeah, that's today's video and what I plan on doing and what you can plan on doing to increase your overhead press. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, you guys have a good night.